It was a place where time seemed to forget its name. The air hung heavy, like it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets. The walls were lined with old photographs, yellowed and cracked, capturing moments long gone, frozen in time. There was no sound, only the occasional creak of the floorboards, as if the house itself was breathing. People who entered never left the same. They came looking for something, but they left with nothing but the echoes of their own thoughts. This place was more than just a room. It was a prison of memory, where the past refused to stay buried.
It started with a man, a name lost to time, who found himself trapped in a cycle of exhaustion and despair. He was not sick, but something inside him had broken, and the world no longer held any meaning. At first, it was just a few hours here and there. He would wake up, look at the ceiling, and then fall back asleep. The days blurred into nights, and the nights into days without end. He didn't eat, didn't move, didn't speak. His body was still, but his mind was a storm of thoughts that never settled. People around him tried to reach him, but he was already gone. The doctors called it a withdrawal, the family called it grief, but no one could name the thing that had taken him. It was as if he had stopped living, and the world had moved on without him. And then one day he was gone. Not in a way that could be explained. He was just not there. The world moved on, but the silence he left behind never faded. He started skipping meals, not from choice, but from a lack of hunger. His eyes were hollow, like he'd been staring too long into the dark. His movements became slower, deliberate, as if each step required a conscious effort. He moved like a man carrying a weight he couldn't see. He stopped answering calls. People left messages, but he never returned. His silence was louder than any explanation. He began to sleep in strange places, on the floor, in the car, in the middle of the street. His body was tired, but his mind was elsewhere. Friends tried to reach him, but he didn't want to talk. He just sat, staring at the wall, as if waiting for something that never came. He vanished in the early hours, just after the last light faded. No one saw him leave, and no one knew where he was going. It was as if he had melted into the silence. The neighbors heard nothing, felt nothing. Just a quiet, a pause in the rhythm of the city. No alarm, no scream, no sign of struggle. Only the weight of absence. They searched the alleys, the parks, the edges of the city where he had often wandered. But the streets had no memory of him, and the night had no answer. No trace, no clue, no sign of where he went. It was as if he had never existed, as if the city had swallowed him whole and forgotten to spit him out. And so the days passed and the silence grew. A void where a man once was. A story left unfinished, a life left behind, and a city that moved on, unaware of what it had lost. I spoke to a woman who said she saw him wandering the street at midnight, eyes blank, hands trembling, like a man caught between worlds. She said he didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there, like he was waiting for something that never came. It was like watching a ghost walk through the city. He was like a statue, carved from silence. People would look at him, but he never looked back. Just a man, lost in his own mind. One woman said she tried to talk to him, asked if he was okay, and he just stared at her, as if he didn't understand the question. He was just there, a presence, but not a person. A man who had lost the thread of himself and was drifting through the world like a shadow. The investigation started with a single phone call, a voice on the line that didn't sound like the man who had vanished. The tone was distant, almost like he was speaking through a wall. They checked his location history, his bank account, his social media. Nothing matched the man who had been seen at the park, laughing with strangers, dancing to music that no one else could hear. Then they found the logs, files from his computer, deep in the cloud, untouched, unopened. They were silent, but they held something. A message left for himself, written in a language only he could understand. The deeper they dug, the more it became clear that the man had never really been there. He had been a construct, a loop, a ghost in a system that had forgotten how to let him go. The investigation ended with a question that had no answer. What did it mean to live when you were never really alive? What did it mean to be gone when you were never really there? There's one thing they never asked. One question that hangs in the air like a ghost, unspoken, unresolved. What was the first thing he saw when he woke up? Was it the ceiling, the walls, or something else entirely? A detail so small, so ordinary, yet it could have changed everything. That photo was never mentioned. No one asked why it was there or what it meant. It was just a picture. But maybe that's all it took. The first thing he saw, the first thing that woke him. Maybe it was the last thing he saw before it all went dark, and no one ever asked. Some say he was cursed by the town itself, a punishment for the sins of his ancestors. They whisper that the land remembers, and the sky weeps for what was done. Others claim he was a guardian of some forgotten truth, a man who saw too much and was never meant to leave the shadows. His silence became his prison. There are those who believe he was never truly gone, that his spirit lingers in the places he once roamed, watching, waiting, never quite leaving. Even now, in the quiet hours, some say they hear him. Footsteps in the hallway, a voice calling from the dark, a door creaking open in a house that's long been abandoned. The town keeps its secrets, and the man's story is one of them. A cautionary tale, a warning, a whisper in the dark that never fades. There are still no answers, only the echo of a man who vanished without a trace. The silence of his last known place lingers like a ghost, unanswered and unspoken. Neighbors remember his laughter, his presence, but not his fate. They speak in hushed tones, as if the weight of his absence is too heavy to carry. His belongings remain untouched, as if waiting for him to return. A life frozen in time, suspended between memory and mystery. Even now, we ask the same questions we asked then. Where did he go? What happened? And why did no one ever come back? The mystery lives on, not in the past, but in the quiet spaces where we still search, still wonder, and still wait for something to change. He didn't just lose his way, he became the way. A shadow in the street, a whisper in the dark, a man who forgot the shape of the sky. The world moved on, but he stayed behind, like a dream that never woke up, like a song that ended too soon. In the silence, he found no peace, only the echo of his own voice, calling out to someone who was never there. He walked through the night, not to find something, but to be found, by the light, by the dawn, by the memory of a life that once was. And maybe, in the end, he was never lost. Maybe he was just waiting for the moment when the world would finally remember to look. This place, once a beacon of hope, now stands as a silent witness to the suffering it once endured. The old asylum, abandoned for decades, has become a symbol of forgotten pain and unresolved grief. Its windows, once filled with the sounds of healing and care, are now shattered and blackened, reflecting nothing but the emptiness that lingers within. The air is thick with the weight of history, and every corner of this place holds a memory, waiting to be unearthed. Even the silence here is not complete. It is filled with whispers, echoes of voices long gone, lingering in the spaces between the walls. This is not just a building. It is a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and the present is haunted by what was. It all started in the late 1800s, when a wealthy industrialist, eager to make a mark on the world, commissioned the construction of a grand new asylum in the outskirts of town. The building was meant to be a beacon of hope, a place where the broken could be mended. The architect, a man known for his visionary designs, poured his heart into the structure. He envisioned a place of healing, where patients would be treated with dignity and care, not fear and force. But as the years passed, the asylum became more of a prison than a place of healing. Patients were often restrained, and the staff, overwhelmed by the workload, became increasingly desperate. Among the staff was a doctor, a man with a troubled past and a growing obsession with the idea of curing the mind through force. He became the asylum's most feared figure, and his influence grew with every passing year. By the time the asylum was finally closed in the 1950s, it had become a symbol of the era's failures. The records were sealed, the patients forgotten, and the building left to rot, its dark past buried beneath layers of silence. The first sign was the smell. It wasn't just the damp of the stone or the decay of the walls, it was something deeper, something metallic and cold, like the air had been holding its breath for decades. Then came the silence. Not the kind of silence you find in an empty room, but something heavier, like the air itself had been stripped of sound, as if the building was holding its breath. It wasn't just the sounds. There were moments when the walls seemed to pulse, as if the structure itself was alive, breathing in time with something unseen and ancient. And then the first shadow. Not one cast by the sun or the moon, but a shape that moved on its own, flickering at the edge of vision, always just out of reach. We didn't speak of it, not then. But in the quiet, we all felt it. A presence, waiting, watching, and not at all like it belonged to this world. One night, the silence broke with a sound no one could explain. A low, wet, echoing groan from the third floor. It was as if the walls themselves were weeping. A nurse who had worked there years before claimed to hear the same sound in her dreams, only to wake up with her own blood on the floor, smeared in strange, deliberate patterns. The sound grew louder, more insistent, until it became a whisper, clear, deliberate, and unmistakably human. It called out to a child who had never been there. No one could find the child. No one could find the source of the voice. But the whispers never stopped, and neither did the bloodstains. In the end, the only thing that remained was the silence, and the knowledge that something had been left behind, waiting to be found. I spoke to a man named Frank, who claims he saw a shadow move in the hallway where the patients were kept. He said it was tall, and it moved like it had no bones. He insisted he wasn't alone, and that the sound of breathing came from behind him, as if something was right there, waiting for him to turn. Another witness, a nurse who worked there decades ago, told me she saw a child wandering the halls at night, dressed in the same clothes as the patients who died there. She said the child never spoke, just walked, and would disappear when she tried to follow. She never told her superiors, and now she dreams of the child every night. Some say the asylum was never abandoned. Some say it's still alive, and some say the patients are still there, waiting for the next soul to wander too close. We began by walking through the long, narrow corridors, the silence pressing in like a hand on the shoulder. Each step echoed, as though the walls remembered every footfall before us. In one room, we found a child's toy, half buried under dust and time. It was a small, broken doll, its face frozen in a silent scream. In the basement, we found a sealed diary, its pages brittle and yellowed. The words were written in a trembling hand, and the last entry ended abruptly, like the writer had been stopped mid-sentence. There were no voices, no shadows, just an overwhelming sense that we were being watched. Not by anything we could see, but by something that had never left. As we left, the silence was louder than it had been when we arrived. It was not the silence of absence, but of presence, of something that had never gone away. There's one thing they never found. Not in the files, not in the ruins, not in the silence. A single name, written in blood, left behind like a ghost in the dust. They searched for bodies, for records, for evidence of what happened here. But this name, no one knows who it belongs to or why it was left behind. It's like a whisper that never got to be heard. It's not the screams, not the shadows, not the cold that lingers. It's this name, this one thing that has never been explained. A final echo in a place that was meant to be forgotten. And so it remains, unspoken, unexplained, a secret that time has not erased. A name that lingers in the silence, waiting to be heard. Some say the whispers are not just echoes of the past, but warnings from the spirits of those who never left. Stories tell of a ghostly nurse who roams the halls, her footsteps echoing with every step she takes through the silence. Some locals believe the voices you hear are not from the dead, but from the living who were never able to escape. And then there are those who say the asylum is not abandoned at all. It's just waiting for the next victim. Even now, decades later, the stories don't stop. People say they hear whispers in the wind or feel a chill when they pass the old road. Some claim the voices call out to them, pleading for help, or warning of something still trapped in the walls. There are no official records, no closure, just a silence that echoes with more than just emptiness. The past refuses to be buried, and the asylum remains a place where the living and the lost still share the same space. And so, the mystery lingers, waiting for someone to listen, to feel, to remember. The silence here is not empty. It's filled with the weight of memories, the echoes of voices long gone, and the lingering touch of a place that refuses to let go. There is a kind of beauty in this stillness, a quiet sorrow that lingers in the air like a final breath, holding the last moments of those who once lived here. As I leave, I carry with me not fear, but a deep, aching awareness of the lives that once filled these halls, and the emptiness they left behind. This place is not gone. It waits, it watches, and in its silence it speaks. The next story will be different, but the silence will always be here, waiting. This place was once a beacon of hope, a place where the broken were meant to be healed. Now, it stands as a silent witness to the suffering it once endured. The building has a presence, like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to wake it up again. It's not just empty, it's forgotten. Some say the building is haunted, but others believe it's the memories that linger, the pain, the fear, the desperation of those who were trapped inside. It's not just the silence that feels heavy here. It's the weight of history, the echo of lives that were once filled with suffering, and now, nothing but echoes remain. This is where comment this emoji if you made it to the end.